All right, folks, so here's what we're going to do real fast. Before we get started, I'm going to run through about 5 or 6 different derivative rules that we have to know, okay? Don't sweat the small stuff on these things. Very often, derivative rules are just a lot of repeated things. I'm going to be talking out loud a lot in this review, and you're going to see that happen, and so I want you just to be ready for that to occur. You talk to yourself a lot, say the rule, you'll be fine, okay? Our first rule, I'll just go over our basic derivative rule, okay? Let's say we got ourselves 5x to the third. How do you find the derivative? Well, the rule says that 3 is going to swing out front, and it's going to make that 3 multiply the 5, and it's going to be 15 times x raised to the what? Raised to the second. Okay, so the most basic derivative rule says you take your exponent that you got when you got a regular old polynomial, swing the exponent out front, and then take one away from the existing exponent, and you are set. Now, I will tell you that when I took calculus, I had a teacher who would bust my ass if I didn't do this. You say, why is that? Well, because that's trying to enact our second rule that we're about to go over called the chain rule. Chain rule says that's all good and well what you did there, but you have to go the extra mile, and you have to basically say the 3 swings out front, it multiplies the 5, you take 1 away from the exponent, and then you multiply it by the derivative of the inside. Well, the derivative of the inside is just going to be 1, so who cares? Well, what if you see something like this? What do you see? 5x cubed minus 8 all to the fourth. Your intuition says, well, it's just something to the fourth, so I'm going to go ahead and just do my regular old rule that takes the 4, swings it out front, times the something, all to the third, right? Not so fast. It turns out that you have to have the extra rule, which is you multiply by the derivative of the inside. So actually here, you would end up multiplying this by the aforementioned 15x squared. Does that make sense to you? This is what's called the chain rule. The chain rule says you do whatever rule you want to use, and that's fine, but you then have to multiply it by the derivative of the inside. This will haunt you in your sleep. This will be the thing that we have to do every time. Every time. In other words, if I add a new rule to this, which I will, I'm going to also add to it the rule that is the chain rule. In other words, the chain rule is built into everything. All right? So let's go here to our next rule. Our next rule says if you have two things, let's say it's x squared minus 3 times x to the fifth, those are two things which are multiplying by each other, so we have to use something called the product rule. The product rule I usually write in a shorthand like this. First second plus second first, second first. In other words, whoops, excuse me there. We have first times derivative of second, right, plus second times derivative of first. Okay, so let's see what we got going on here. It's first, which is x squared minus 3, just write the first thing, times the derivative of the second thing, which is 5x to the fourth, plus the second thing, which is x to the fifth, times the derivative of the first, which is just going to be 2x. You see how I did that? So again, if you have two things which are multiplying each other, you have what's called a product rule that has to be used. And that product rule is a nice mnemonic device, which one more time is first times derivative of second plus second times derivative of first. All right? Now, another rule that's going to come into play, and again, these rules are all embedded in every other derivative rule, so just to kind of like lay the foundation, we have, let's say we have x to the fifth divided by x squared minus 3. Well, that requires something called a what? A quotient rule. The quotient rule, I like to use this cute little mnemonic device. It's low d high minus high d low all over low low. Okay? So low, the bottom, times the derivative of the top, minus top times derivative of the bottom, all over bottom squared. Okay? So in this case then, that would be what? Well, low is just x squared minus 3 times the derivative of the top, which is 5x to the fourth, minus high, which is x to the fifth, times derivative of the low, which is what? 2x, yes? All divided by the low, x squared minus 3, all squared. Now, it is worth noting that these are just our foundational rules, right? These are going to be brought in to other existing rules, but I want to be able to say that I said them all.